Hello. Thanks, everybody, for coming. I'm Jacobson from Mongabay, and this is my colleague.
Hi, everyone. It's amazing to be here again for the second year in a row. I work with him at Mongabay, and I'm at SCJ.
So we are presenting an investigation that we published recently about Brazilian government purchases of shark meat to feed school children, prisoners, hospital patients. So it's an environment story, it's a public procurement story. And to do this investigation, we built our own database of these procurements in Brazil. So I'm very happy for the opportunity to share this story with you because the shark meat trade is it's a global industry. It's something that I wasn't familiar with, and it touches many different countries, including several in Europe. So I think it could be relevant to many of you. So we're from Mongabay. I'll skip these. This is the story. So first, to set the stage, I imagine many of you are familiar with shark fins, shark fin soup, which is a popular dish in China. As China's middle class expanded in the 80s and 90s, demand for shark fin soup rose dramatically, and with that, so did fishing pressure on sharks. So today, sharks aren't doing too well. Many shark species are endangered. Over the last 50 years, shark abundance in the open ocean has declined by 71%, which is a pretty staggering figure. So sharks are kind of in trouble. But shark fins is only part of the story. There's also a huge trade and growing trade in shark meat. And one of the interesting things is that the countries involved in the shark fin trade aren't exactly the same as the ones involved in the shark meat trade. So for fins, the demand is mainly concentrated in Asia. But for the meat trade, there's many different countries consuming shark meat, including some in Europe. The biggest trader of shark meat is Spain. And the world's biggest consumer and importer of shark meat is Brazil. So one of the appeals is that shark meat is cheap. So the fins are expensive, the meat is cheap, so it's cheap fish protein. But the funny thing is that a lot of people who eat shark don't know that they're eating it. So in Brazil, shark meat isn't sold as shark, it's sold as under a different name, and that name is cação. So it's similar in Greece, actually, which is also, by the way, a significant shark meat importer. There's a restaurant near the hotel that some of us are staying at, and I went there the other day, and you look at the menu, there's a fish called galeas, and galeas is actually shark. So it's a similar situation in a lot of countries where shark meat is consumed. People don't know they're eating it. So we wanted to look at Brazil's shark meat trade, and so we were asking around about this. Asking around about this, and we learned that it's not just restaurants and grocery stores where shark meat is found, it's also school lunches. So some people told us about this. There's also some documented instances. In 2021, for example, there was a controversy in Sao Paulo city where the government wanted to buy 650 metric tons of shark meat for school lunches. So it was eventually, the planned purchase was eventually canceled after there was a backlash from civil society, which was covered by a big Brazilian TV channel. Aside from that, and aside from a few random mentions, passing mentions in some academic papers, there wasn't any data that showed how widespread these purchases were. So we're scratching our heads trying to figure out how can we solidify this story. And eventually we learned that Brazil requires government agencies to publish their procurement records online. So if the Rio de Janeiro health agency wants to buy chicken or fish or shark for hospitals in their network, theoretically there should be a record of that purchase online somewhere, on a website somewhere. So that's basically what we set out to do. We thought we could go to these transparency portals with the procurement records and find the shark meat purchases, make our own list, essentially construct our own database of these purchases. So it sounds simple, but it's actually it wasn't very straightforward. For one thing, there's thousands of towns and cities in Brazil, 26 states. Each one is supposed to have its own transparency portal. So there's thousands of these portals. We couldn't search them all. There's also, the designs tend to be very archaic. They lack advanced search functionality. It's not like Google, and you couldn't just go to, it wasn't as simple as just typing in cação in a box and presto, now you've got all the data that you need. So these are just some of the portals. You can kind of see how different they are. So beyond that, I'm not going to get into the technical details of how we searched all these portals. If you go to Mongabay's website, we just published an article explaining the methodology, which we worked on with the Pulitzer Center's data editor, Mr. King, who's got a byline on this thing. So I encourage you to check that out. And so these are some of the headline figures. We found 1,012 verified shark meat tenders in 10 different states, procuring a total of 5,400 metric tons of shark meat. And we identified 5,900 public institutions that were listed as potential recipients of shark meat on these tenders. So this ranges from, preschools, maternity wards, elderly care facilities, military bases, police stations, highway checkpoints, homeless shelters. There was even an oceanographic research vessel that shark meat was being procured to feed the crew on. So that was important to show the breadth of this phenomenon. So once we had this data, we wanted to put a human face on it. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to Karla. Here you go.
Yeah, so we teamed up for this, and interesting because my core area of coverage has been always forests, and I was in the middle of a fellowship with the Pulitzer Center for my forest investigation that I presented here last year. And then an editor asked me if I could cover a breaking news story about some seizure of shark fins in Brazil that was dubbed the largest in the world. So I said, no, I can do that. So I did that story, and I was really intrigued what was behind that. And as I spoke with some authorities, they started telling me about the shark meat, that's cação, that I ate once, didn't like, I didn't know at the time it was shark. The texture was very rubbery. I remember I threw it away, and then I said, oh, so I ate that. And then the source started telling me that the federal government and municipal and state agencies were just bulk buying it. And it's very complicated because some species are endangered, and also there is a huge health aspect linked to it, because as a top predator, shark meat has high levels of mercury and arsenic, and if you eat it in large amounts, you can get serious health problems. And some vulnerable populations like kids and pregnant women, the effect can be more immediate. And then at that moment I thought, that's a scandal because vulnerable populations are being fed with that shark meat. Because who goes to public schools in Brazil, public nursing homes, nurseries are the most vulnerable populations. So immediately I wanted to do that story. At the time, Phil was putting together his proposal for the Pulitzer Fellowship. And I said, no, let's do it. And so then here it's a kind of, you can see like all the schools, in public schools, and here prisons, so all the institution. This is a second story that another colleague, Fernanda and Phil, did, focused in Rio Grande do Sul, in the south of Brazil, where they found some endangered angel shark species were being bought, also for school meals. And here are some photos of the reporting I did that laid at the tops from Duque de Caxias, that's a city in the outskirts of Rio. And her kids studied public school. And in that city, a teacher who is the head of the school council for meals has been battling to get shark meat out of the meals for many years. And then I visited them, spoke with them, and the interesting thing is that they started battling against that because they noticed that the students were rejecting the meat because it has a very strong smell, and like the texture, and they really said, we are wasting food. And for many of those students, that's the unique source of protein on that day. So they really were concerned about it. And, but then afterwards, that they figured out that it was shark. And so there are several implications. That lady at the top is a nutritionist I interviewed in Ouro Preto in Minas Gerais state. And it was interesting because she only knew that cação was shark the day before I interviewed her, because she mentioned the story to the daughter of a friend who is an oceanographer. And then that to me showed how important it was to do the story, because it's not just, you know, the common citizen doesn't know that cação is shark. It's widespread in Brazil. Many of my friends who have higher education didn't know that either. And there is a problem of mislabeling. Because if you go to a grocery store, it's not written that's shark. They put cação, some packages show like the scientific name, but who knows what's the scientific name. So immediately I thought this story could really have an impact and drive some policy changes. And so here, the very first story was back to 2023 that somehow originated the story along with the other research that Phil had, and also shows how important it is, because when we think about investigations, we think that suddenly the story just comes out of the blue. And many stories come from regular news stories. There's some nuances and things behind them that's worth pursuing. And so, and it had really immediate impact. The very first one was like the outrage from the fishing industry. They published several statements trying to discredit our investigation, especially regarding the health aspect. And then we published another story quoting their statements, and had facts, and scientists keep backing everything that we published. And of course, it's a big thing because there's a lot of money on the table. Because the Brazilian government and the municipal and state governments, they are the top buyers. So like several companies in Brazil really rely on selling products to them. So it's understandable. And, but we also had some positive impacts. There is a lawmaker in Brazil. He filed a bill to ban public tenders of shark meat for federal institutions. That project is stalled in the National Congress since then, and he'll call for a public hearing to discuss our revelations. And also, like for school meals, there is an institution in Brazil, there is a program, a national program, that distributes money to states and municipalities to buy school meals. And they said they will also set up an investigation into our inquiries. And one thing that we found is that the Ministry of Health recommends shark meat for kids, including, because we found it in a guide. So we tried to talk to them, they never responded to us. So one interesting nuance is that why shark meat is so recommended? So nutritionists usually defend it because they are really afraid of kids choking with fish bones. And the shark meat doesn't have those little fish bones. So it's been a battle. We also interviewed the head of the Brazil Environmental Agency, Bama. He was the mayor of a city in São Paulo at the time, and he signed shark meat procurements. And I asked him about this, and then say, yeah, the nutritionists come with the case ready for us. We can't do anything. And we really need to change that because the populations of shark are decreasing. In Brazil, the only species allowed is the blue shark, but the industry says it's, the fertility levels are high, but it's not true, so they're trying to put it in danger lists. And the last story we did, these new measures, so Brazil is reviewing their framework regarding shark meat, and then after the investigation, I interviewed a source from the Ministry of Environment, and they said that our investigation was key for them to approve, they approved the motion to ban shark fin exports because it's all connected, fins and shark meat, and how they regulate the market of blue shark fishing. So it was really rewarding to see making this noise, and I'm hopeful that they can ban the shark meat from public tenders. And there's the links of the stories we publish, and there is a methodology one that we'll publish today. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions. It's out, but we are available to speak with any of you interested to learn more about our investigation. Thank you so much.